Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. The courts aren't just at war with the executive branch. The courts are at war, these radical rogue judges, with the legislative branch as well, too.
Okay, so that was budding authoritarian ghoul Stephen Miller, high up in the Trump administration, one of Trump's top advisors. And so this is Trump's thinking as well. There's so much wrong with this, and that's what we're going to get into today. This channel's been mostly about Elon Musk and his involvement with the government, increasingly so in recent months. And I have got a politics channel as well. I've started that, but I'm going to start making politics videos here. I can't keep quiet about this kind of thing. This is budding authoritarianism, the backslide into autocracy in the US. And so we're going to get more into this today. If you don't know what habeas corpus is, we're going to explain that too in this video here. Let's get into it. Let's break this down because it's unbelievable, shocking, a red flag, a red alert. It's like a rolling constitutional crisis in the US at the moment. So let's get into this.
Today, the Trump administration again escalated its fight with the courts. In stunning remarks to reporters this afternoon, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller said the administration is considering suspending habeas corpus. Habeas petitions give people the right to contest unlawful detentions. Miller's comments come as judges across the country have blocked major parts of President Trump's immigration agenda, including ordering that some students being targeted for deportation by the administration be released from detention.
Okay, so this is what Stephen Miller was talking about, these rogue judges. And so this is what authoritarians do. They attack democratic institutions, including the courts, including academia, which they've done, the universities, all of the things, classic playbook, backsliding or sliding into it. And this is just one aspect. There are just so many, which is why I'm going to make more videos about this, whether that gets an audience to begin with or not. But I'm going to make videos on this. I have to. It's one of the most important things going on in the world right now.
Our White House correspondent, Laura Barone-Lopez, joins us now for the latest. So, Laura, can the president do this, as Miller is suggesting?
So habeas is the most basic entitlement to judicial review of unlawful detention, as you noted, Jeff. And essentially, I spoke to Steve Vladeck, the constitutional law scholar, who said that habeas is so fundamental that it is a right that is in the original Constitution under Article 1, and that the overwhelming consensus is that it's long been that only Congress can suspend habeas corpus. The only other time that a president has essentially done this is when it appears as though Congress is not in session. President Lincoln did this when Congress was not in session at the beginning of the Civil War, but then Congress later authorized the ability to suspend habeas. Another constitutional...
I think this has been done a few times in history, over the long time in history. One of those times, I think, was in World War II, where they interned Japanese people, and that, not even arguably, that was a wrong thing to do now when people look back on this. So it has literally been in wartime, though, when this has happened before for brief periods. And Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are saying there's an invasion, so we need to do this. I mean, is there an invasion? They're really stretching it, and the courts have been saying repeatedly, been knocking back the Trump regime on a number of issues, and this is why Stephen Miller's saying these things. But the court rogue judges, they're just doing their job. The judges that they're talking about have been doing their job. Even MAGA judges who would vote MAGA, who would support MAGA, are saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do this. And so the courts are thankfully pushing back, but the Trump administration, are they going to ignore the courts? They're seeming to starting to do that. And this is very dangerous ground, as I said, sliding towards autocracy very quickly. It's only been just over 100 days.
Expert I spoke to said that this is significant because without habeas, there's no way for a person to go before a court and to essentially argue that their liberty was taken away and have a hearing to argue that. Now, the timing of Stephen Miller's comments is key here because of the fact that it's after judges have repeatedly ruled that the administration's actions regarding deportations are unlawful. And it also comes after a student just today was ordered released by a federal judge from detention after filing a successful habeas petition.
And that was the federal judge in Vermont who ordered that Tufts student, Rumeysa Ozturk, who was being detained in Louisiana. Is that right? That she must be.
So she was taken off the streets by masked ICE officers. It was shocking to see that a while ago. I think it was a couple of months ago. She's been detained for really doing nothing wrong, for writing an op-ed in a student newspaper is what happened there. So this is why I'm saying it's your constitutional rights. If they can start doing this, they could do it to anybody once they start doing it, not just people you think, oh, that's okay. I don't mind if that person gets taken away. I mean, you should mind, but rights get chipped away, or in this case, sliding very quickly.
Released. Bring us up to speed.
That's right. So Rumeysa Ozturk is a PhD student from Tufts who was not charged with a crime. Her student visa was revoked, and she's been in detention since March because of an op-ed that she wrote that was critical of Israel, that the administration said is evidence that she poses a foreign policy, an adverse foreign policy consequence. And the judge today, District Judge William Sessions, said that the government's case was entirely based on this op-ed that Ozturk wrote, that essentially there was no evidence that she has engaged in violence or advocated violence to back up their claims that she poses a threat to U.S. foreign policy. They said she does. The judge said that she does not pose a flight risk, and so he placed no travel restrictions on her. And this is one significant line that the judge as well said. Judge William Sessions said that her continued detention potentially chills the speech of the millions and millions of individuals in this country who are not citizens.
Okay, so this is why I'm saying they're chipping away at rights. And this is what Stephen Miller would call a rogue judge, but they're just interpreting the law and saying, no, you can't do that. Her continued detention potentially chills the speech of millions and millions of individuals in this country who are not citizens. And also, if they do this, they would not stop there. Trump has already said publicly in the Oval Office, while journalists were there, that he wants to go after homegrowns next. He talked about the worst individuals who commit murder, but really authoritarian regimes, once they get going, they can really take anybody, just people that are in opposition to them, people that don't like. People need to be aware of what's going on here. Part of this is to make people apathetic and fearful as well, that don't want to get involved in politics. They don't want people to get involved. They don't want people to speak up. They don't want judges to push back.
And I just want to say also, Jeff, that she was initially detained not far from her home. She was arrested by plainclothes agents off the streets of Boston. And
here we go. This is what it was. See these ICE agents here. This is what they're looking like these days. They're just in plain clothes. They didn't identify themselves. It was like a kidnapping.
And that video was released. It was pretty stunning to see.
It was. Look at that. And so this is what's happening all over the United States. I've seen videos of this, of people, ICE agents coming into communities masked. It's people saying, if you got a warrant, they're not answering back. They're not identifying themselves. And, why are they masked? Why are they hooded and masked? It's like Trump's Gestapo. There's a danger of it turning into like that. We can't compare it to 1930s Germany because it's always different. This is the 21st century. We all know how that ended, but this doesn't necessarily end like that. It's different with these regimes, and there are a lot of them helping each other around the world.
Top Trump advisor Stephen Miller saying the administration is, quote, looking at suspending a key part of the Constitution, the right to habeas corpus.
Okay, so this is MSNBC.
Habeas corpus is one of the most important and basic rights we are entitled to. It is the mechanism that protects people against unlawful imprisonment. And it is enshrined in the Constitution, which says that it can only be suspended in cases of, quote, invasion in the interest of public safety.
Okay, so this is where they're arguing that there is an invasion. So this is like a wartime invasion, which is really, really drawing a very long bow here. It's like they're trying to come up with an excuse, a fake crisis. This is a classic, create a fake crisis, take more power, and then take away people's civil rights. This is what seems to be happening. It seems so obvious, but you have to be paying attention. I know a lot of people are disengaged from politics in the US. It's not even compulsory free to vote like it is in some other countries. And, people were just going about their lives, but it'll start to impact people's lives. We've seen this with ICE officers going into communities. It might be your neighbor. It might be even a relative. These things are incremental, but it's happening so fast.
Trump has tried to argue there's a, quote, invasion as justification for his mass deportation campaign. But a judge in Texas has already debunked that claim, finding the White House has, quote, failed to prove any invasion. Trump, in a cabinet meeting last week, appeared to reference habeas corpus when musing about how he can expand his presidential power despite court orders.
So he wants all the power. He wants as much power as he can get, presidential power, executive power. But that, of course, is not the way the United States as a liberal democracy works. It's not all about the president and his powers. Really crossing the line, pushing the boundaries on a daily basis is something every day, which is why I'm going to report on it more now.
We're facing an unprecedented situation where there's a lot of abuses of nationwide injunctions, sort of seemingly designed to curtail your power, specifically when it comes to deporting these illegal, violent aliens that came in under the previous administration. Have you spoken to your team about ways to mitigate this and continue to deliver for the American people?
Okay, so this is another thing. You notice the journalists surrounding Trump who are asking him questions these days in the White House. They're inviting in social media, podcasters, softball questions. They're not pushing back, not being real journalists, asking tough questions. It's all just sycophantic people that are not real journalists. They're happy to be there, and they're like, oh, Trump.
There are ways to mitigate it, and there's some very strong ways. There's one way that's been used by 3 very highly respected presidents, but we hope we don't have to go that route.
He is talking about suspending habeas corpus as it's been done in the past in actual wartime situations, and some of those have been questionable as well.
So joining me now is Jelani Cobb, Dean of the Graduate School of Journalism for Columbia University and a writer for The New Yorker. Do you take what Miller says seriously?
I think we have to take what he says very seriously. We've seen his influence on policy in the White House and, throughout, 2 administrations now.
Yep. So Stephen Miller, it was in the first administration. He's been gaining power. He's somebody that Trump has talked fondly about, and he's so obviously in the ear of the president, saying ridiculous things. And he seems to be one of the people in the administration who has actually some of the most power and influence right now.
I should just say that, when Lincoln suspended habeas corpus, it was in the midst of the Civil War when twice, Robert E. Lee's forces, the Confederates, literally did invade the North in an attempt to encircle Washington, D.C. and bring an end to the war, a favorable end for the Confederacy. And so when we're talking about a conflict in which 700,000 plus Americans lost their lives, we know what an invasion is. That's the definition of an invasion. When we're talking about a conflict over immigration policy that does not qualify as an invasion.
You need to believe that we are being invaded to such an unprecedented extent that it would mean exercising these kinds of strange wartime powers.
Okay, and this is what the courts are saying. This is not one of those situations. It's so obviously not. People in the public obviously see that it's not. If you're a MAGA person and being influenced and just listen to everything Trump says and what these people like Stephen Miller says, you might think that, but the evidence is just not there at all. There's no way that it's any kind of invasion. They just want to deport anybody they want to, anybody in opposition to them.
But I think that's true, but it's also consistent with what we've seen, like the tendency to be on both sides of a question. Even when we go back to 2016 and the original kind of reemergence of law and order and saying the rhetoric was that, people had to be saved by, the complete, saved from the marauding gangs of criminals who were roaming the streets of American cities, as opposed to pointing out the fact that crime was considerably down over those years. And so it really doesn't matter. We're not talking about statistical reality or objective reality. We're talking about rhetorical reality, which can be anything that people need at any given moment.
Yep. So they're creating a crisis, a fake crisis, and this is exactly the playbook of autocracies. If you look around the world in history, creating a fake crisis, taking power and never letting go of that power, increasing power and decreasing civil liberties for safety. Usually for safety will keep you safe.
The mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, arrested while on a trip to an ICE detention facility. The video of that chaotic moment is dramatic.
Okay, so this is in the last 24 hours. A mayor is being arrested by ICE, and we've had a judge arrested, attacking the courts, and this is sending a message that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, including arresting mayors.
Video showing a tense scuffle with masked federal agents. 3 members of Congress were there as well.
Okay, so that's the mayor. The woman there in the red jacket there is a congresswoman, and the mayor's right behind there. So I've cut this video short so we can just see the clip, but it's just unbelievable.
Including 80-year-old Bonnie Coleman. She's the woman in the center right there.
I'm not letting you cannot push. You cannot push. You cannot push.
There we go. There's the mayor being arrested right there.
This is reminiscent. We just saw a judge being arrested, under these circumstances. And can you imagine, what the outcry would be if we saw a Democratic president arresting the mayor of a largely Republican city over a policy dispute? And for that matter, the city of Newark has maintained that the ICE detention center that's being operated there is being operated illegally. So it's not that this was, there was no basis for the mayor to be there. He was there under the official warrant of his responsibilities as mayor of that city. And so, this is kind of characteristic of the overreach we've seen consistently. We've seen it in multiple arenas. We've seen it with the law firms. We've seen it with what this administration is doing at higher education, including the university I teach at, Columbia University. We've seen it in every arena that we can imagine. And now we're seeing it enacted against elected officials, people who have been put into office by democratic will of the public themselves.
What kind of signal do you think, you know the mayor well, that they're sending not just to him as an individual, a person who had the right to be there to protest, but also specifically the community of Newark that he serves here?
The point is that meant to say that there are no checks on the authorities, on the administration's authority, and that anyone, if the mayor is not safe, then no one is safe. And I think that it's meant to convey that message.
It's definitely meant to convey that message. So this is really sad to see the literal breaking down of democracy in the US. From outside the US, this is sad to see what's going on. You can see in the media bubble that not everybody can see this yet. Not everybody realizes what's going on, I don't think. And people who watch Fox News, it's the regime channel. They're fully supportive, not questioning any of this stuff, including the arresting of their mayor and the judge as well. It's just regime media, and it is the biggest. It's got the biggest audience there. So a lot of people aren't aware or just actually going along with it, which is how these things work. Authoritarians usually get voted in, and then they grab more and more power, take away civil liberties until it's too late, and people can't see the corruption. It's not reported on. There are a lot of sources that aren't trusted, and this is why I'm going to report on it. As I said, I've had the politics channel. We've got 8 videos on there right now, but I'm going to be doing more on this channel too. Probably won't get many views to begin with, but I'm going to keep doing it because I think it's, as I said, I think it's one of the most important things that's happening in the world. So I hope you'll come along with me on this journey as I do more of these videos, as well as the politics channel. And right now, if you get value out of this video, I would appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed yet to this channel, and follow along. I'm doing these videos daily. Also there, I'm going to put a related video right there if you're watching this on YouTube, and hi to everybody on Spotify watching this. That's the other place where you can get videos. And so thanks for watching this one, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.